Hey everybody, hope you guys are all doing okay, and welcome back to Let's Play Chronicon. We are of course still with the Warden. We are still doing my endgame playthrough as I mentioned in the earlier videos. This is going to be a bit unorthodox. We're going to start off not at the beginning but at the end, and I mentioned the reasons for that last episode, partially because, I'm being lazy, I don't want to roll a whole new character, but mostly because this really is the most fun part of the game. And in this video, we're going to be continuing off kind of where I left off the last video. So last video, I kind of talked about my build in a broad sense. In this video, I'll go into a bit more details about how the build works, and specifically why I think this build that I'm running is a good build for newer players. Certainly it was a good build for me when I didn't know much about the game. But before we get into that, you might notice, so the gameplay, the video rather, will look a bit different, a little bit different in this video compared to the previous ones. That's because this one I'm playing full screen. The previous ones were windowed. I actually think the game looks a bit better in non-full screen, but the problem then is that when I'm making a video for it, video out of it for YouTube, there's either a lot of blank space, or I stretch it and then it doesn't look sharp. It doesn't look crisp the way it looks right now. So I was like, you know what? I guess I can make a bit of a compromise here. I guess I can play the game full screen. Like, it still looks really good, but I think the reason why I liked windowed mode is because this is it's a very compact game with not a lot of filler, not a lot of fluff. For that reason, I just felt like the smaller windowed mode was more like in character for the game as a whole. But you know what? Full screen is gonna be fine. I'll get used to it pretty quickly, and I'm sure within a few videos I'll forget what playing windowed mode even was like. Anyway, that's an unnecessarily long amount of time spent rambling about that. Let's get into what we're going to do in this episode. We're going to be running a few more dungeon anomalies, kind of as a psychological milestone almost. I want to get to tier 100. Now, whether or not I get to tier 100, one thing I can tell you is that I won't be showing you every single anomaly that I run, because then that alone, like that part alone, just the anomalies, would make the series way too long. Instead, especially for this first series with the Warden, where we're kind of just learning about different game concepts, looking at different game modes, and just getting a feel for the game, I'll show you some of the highlights. But for these first few videos, I think I will mostly just record without cutting stuff out, because you guys and me as well, because I'm coming back to this game after a bit of a break, we're all getting a feel for it again. So that's the first thing we're gonna do. Before we jump right into the anomalies, I also want to reiterate what my objectives are. So I want to get, if we go to the incubator and if I hit X, it'll show me which of my beasts I can possibly put into the incubator. Now this is a very important point. So, if I can click it properly, if we look at required foods, those are basically materials that you can find on the ground. You can find them in the expedition nodes, the expedition tree. So for the ice ones, for the ice beast, you can find their materials pretty reliably in these ice sections of the map. I've already cleared all of those, and for the for this beast, its stuff is going to be found in these wooden forest type areas, but you can also find them in regular anomalies, assuming the right kind of environment spawns. Now, anomalies will have a random environment every time. That's one thing that's cool about them, because at least visually it never gets stale. the background will always be something different. But there's one more very important thing you need to know when you're leveling up your beasts is that, as far as I know, the materials for the beasts will only spawn for the beast that is currently in your incubator. So right now I've got the this guy. So if I happen to go into an area with the right kind of terrain or the right kind of enemies, then I'll start getting treant bark and fairy dust. If I then switch over to the ice beast, if I'm in the right kind of terrain or fighting the right kind of enemies, I'll then start getting sandworm meat, clear ice, beast chunks. I'm gonna be having the ice one for a while because his materials are very hard to find, just because ice is just a difficult resource to gather, and also sandworms, you find them all over the place, but you never find that many of them because they're almost mini boss kind of enemies because they've got a ridiculous amount of health. You only find them in like small packs, so that's going to be another thing that's going to be slow to grind up. So having said that, if like I've got this guy equipped, if I go into an anomaly and I find that there are a lot of treants around, I will come back and I will switch to this guy. Or if I notice that there are fairies around, just because, you know, want to be at least a little bit efficient. Another goal of mine, for that again, we're going to have to go back to the expedition tree to show you this skill node that I'm working on. Physical specialization, which just gives a base damage boost to rapid shot, which is my primary skill that I'm using. I want to get that all the way to 100, and in fact I have enough resources on me that I can get it pretty high up, but I kind of want to get it all the way to 100 in one go. Now you might think, hey, well, what's the point? Why not just get smaller boosts along the way, you get more damage? There are a couple of reasons. Number one, and this is just one thing that I stubbornly do in a lot of RPGs, is that I hate partial level ups. I will often wait and grind until I have enough experience, enough resources to level up the entire skill as far as I possibly can in one go. And you're right, it's dumb to do it that way. It makes it harder for myself because if I got more damage, I'd go quicker. It's just a thing that I do. You'll have to bear with me. But the other reason is, like, if you're constantly improving your skills, you kind of don't get a sense of where your ceiling is. So I want to not gain too much damage, and I want to see at which point these anomalies start getting too hard. Because I'm still getting a sense of how difficult this game is. Because in all of these games with, you know, like infinitely scaling dungeons, at a certain point, you will hit a wall. I haven't hit that wall yet, but I want to see where that'll be with my current set of stats. Right, that's the other goal. Another thing that I want to do, and this is a minor thing that I might just do off screen, so I've got my personal stash here, and my multiplayer stash. So early on when I was setting the stashes, I made a bit of a mistake. I got them mixed up and I started putting personal stuff in the shared stash and shared stuff in the personal stash. So at some point, like, so these are all of the other sets that I'm not using right now. Like the wind collar, shroom tender, so on. And including a whole other copy of the High Ranger set that I'm using. But this is stuff that's, for the most part, only relevant to this one character, so it should not be in the shared stash. Likewise, in my personal stash are crafting materials that are useful for every character. And not only that, but I've also been gathering up true legendary items, because I want at least one of them for like at least one copy of each of the true legendaries. But like some of them are only for rangers, like bows, but a lot of the other ones, like any character could use, like any character can use these boosts, for example. So this stuff needs to go into the shared stash. I will probably do that in between episodes, but I've just been, for now, too lazy, so I've been treating my shared stash as my personal stash, and vice versa. Last thing I want to do is I want to take a look at my gear as well. I want to see, was there anything that I'm leveling up? So it looks like most of my stuff is leveled up, and the way I can tell that it's leveled up, so next to each of the stats, oh, hey, there's, okay, so this is one advantage to playing in full screen, I guess. So when I was playing in windowed mode, because I've got so many things on each of my items, like such a long list of enchantments, and then I have runes, and then I have gems, that sometimes parts of it were getting cut off. So I guess it's, yeah, you know what, I'm convinced. Overall, it is better to play in full screen mode, so I'll stick with that. But what I was gonna say is, I think most of my stuff is leveled up, and the way you can tell that it's leveled up is next to the stats, there's a little star, and most of them will have a gold star next to them, except for certain stats. So for instance, if I go here, I've got 2 resistances that are only a silver star. It might be hard to tell, but if you look closely, you'll notice that the star next to lightning and holy resistance is only silver rather than gold. And likewise for the fire resistance here, and the frost and shadow resistance there. The reason I'm not raising my resistances for that, I'll have to actually go into this anomaly to show you, because the anomaly will lower my resistances. So like if I showed you my resistances right now, you wouldn't get a true picture of it, because under like normal difficulty, like, or legendary difficulty, which is what we're on, we are like, our resistances are like overstacked. But if I go into this tier 51 anomaly, and let's make sure we've got nobody bothering us in this corner of the map. Now if I look at my resistances, well, they're still at the maximum, but you'll have to take my word for it that the 50% penalty is being applied. So despite that penalty, we are still at 80%, which is the maximum, and that is why I haven't bothered to spend the resources to take these resistances any higher. Having said that, it's entirely possible that in a future update, maybe another difficulty mode will be introduced where resistances are penalized even further than what we have right now. Let me see what sort of enemies we have here. We have fairy enemies, hard to tell, we might not. We're killing things a little bit too quickly, and even though it's full screen, so in theory it should be easier to see. Oh, these are root enemies. I don't think they drop treant bark, even though they're kind of like tree enemies. I think you have to kill actual treants before you get treant bark. So I'm not gonna... Oh, too many enemies, too many wrathful effects. Bit of slowdown happening. So I don't think I'm gonna run back and switch to my other beast for the purposes of upgrading or collecting resources to upgrade. It's possible that those Cinderroot enemies count as Fey enemies. But you know what? I don't need that much extra Fey dust or whatever that we... Oh, when did I lose my streak? That's a shame. We had a pretty good streak going for a while. I think I got a bit too distracted, like trying to read these enemy attributes. Oh my god, I can't. I'm killing them too quickly. I can't read anything. You guys might be able to, because you know, you might be able to pause the video at the exact right frame and see exactly what the enemy affiliations are, but sadly I can't, and I don't have like the encyclopedic memory that I have with like Diablo, for example. But that's another reason I love playing this game, at least right now, is because I don't know it that well, and it always feels like there's so much more to learn every time I play. So one thing I said that I would do at the start of this video is that I would tell you why this build is a newbie-friendly build. So I do have some special skills. For example, I can throw down traps. They can grab enemies, slow them down. I can cast this skill, Empowered Shot, which I think will either slow enemies down or give me an attack speed bonus. You know what? No reason to guess. Let's yeah, okay, so using Empowered Shot increases attack speed, and Empowered Shot itself does a decent amount of damage. So I have some like active skills that I can use, but for the most part, are those treants? They definitely look a lot more tree-like. I'm getting distracted again. I should finish my thought. What I was going to say was, for the most part, almost all of the damage I'm dealing is bleed damage, which is being done through essentially my primary skill and nothing else. And just a reminder for how my damage works, I'm using the High Rangers set, and the main thing it does, it gives me overdraw and double draw. Those just essentially allow me to attack more and then attack more targets. But it also boosts razor tip damage and allows razor tips to stack infinitely. And if we remind ourselves what razor tips were, razor tips trigger from Splinter. Splinter triggers from our physical skills, and Rapid Shot, of course, is the chief physical skill that we're using. So most of the damage that we're doing is from just hitting enemies with our primary attack. And so there's not a lot of thought involved. I remember when I was playing Diablo 2, you did have builds where your primary attack was involved. For example, I remember as a Demon Hunter, I remember using... I'm sorry, I'm talking about Diablo 3 now, because that's the closer analogy to this game, although there's similarities with Diablo 2. But with Diablo 3, I remember as the Demon Hunter using Focus and Restraint, where you gained a damage bonus for using your primary attack, but the main damage that you were getting was always through, you know, some special skill that you were using. Like, very rarely would you be able to get a really strong build from just hitting enemies with your primary attack. And I guess for good reason, because primary attack doesn't really take a lot of strategy. You just stand back, especially a ranged primary attack. Like, you just stand back and shoot, and then enemies just die. And especially, you know, with infinitely stacking bleed damage, you stand back and shoot, and then you can even run away, and then your enemies will die without... Like, there will be hilarious instances where, like, I've hit a boss, and then they've teleported away, or I've run away to avoid an attack, and then they die while I'm not even attacking them. That's the magic of bleed damage. But yeah, that's what I mean when I say this is a beginner-friendly build. is that you can just hit enemies at range with your primary skill and still get really, really good damage multipliers for it. And I guess I'll quickly go through my gear as well, just to show you what I'm using. A couple more items left to go. Of course, you can pause at any moment and take note of what I've done to my items. I've customized them quite heavily. By the way, if you have questions about, like, because I know sometimes there are abbreviations, like excuse me, could you not disturb me while I'm talking? Like, sometimes there are abbreviations, like CGR basically means crafted greater rune, CLR means crafted lesser rune. So, like, if you have any questions about any of the items, feel free to ask, and I'll answer to the best of my abilities. For the gear that I'm using, I think I'll be able to do a pretty good job of answering questions. For gear that I'm not using, that's when I would be a lot less certain about how it works, but nonetheless, you know, I'd still do my best to give you an answer, or, you know, I'd be honest and I'd tell you, you know what, I don't know. You know, there's no shame in admitting that you don't know something. So yeah, all of that is to say, feel free to ask me anything and everything that strikes your fancy that's related to the game, and I will do my best to answer if I can. Alright, you guys are getting a bit close, and oh, I think my elixirs wore off. It's a testament to how strong our build is at this stage of the endless anomalies that even without my elixirs, we're still doing pretty good damage. I should be hitting chests. You know, one reason I should be hitting chests is I haven't yet gotten the achievement for, like, opening 1,000 chests or what have you. Partially because I haven't played the game that long. Also partially because, like, I don't know, like chests are low priority. Yes, you can get a bit of extra loot by hitting them up, but it's not make or break. The main loot that you get is the actual reward you get for beating the anomaly. Oh, you know what? I guess I should, you know, not skip the enemy, like, a little bit of a cutscene. Like, I've done so many of these anomalies that I'm just used to. I'm used to just skipping everything and tearing straight through them. But you know what? Next time I'm not gonna skip. Right, so now, of course, having done the anomaly, we do this ritual, which is selling all the stuff, and then rearranging it again, and then selling the legendary items that we got. I mentioned in the previous video, one change that I would really like to see is for the game to give you an easier way to sell your legendary and true legendary items. Now, one thing I need to check is, so, picked up these boots, Fleet Striders, which almost certainly I have. In fact, I spot them right there. And I already have a version of them with gold star stats. So once you get a high enough, or once you reach a high enough level in the endless anomalies, you will start getting items which by default will drop with gold star primary stats. So like health or mana or damage. These values, the fact that there's a gold star there means that's the highest they can get. Of course, your other primary stats, I guess maybe through luck, you might get a gold star on just a drop, but really you'd be Actually, no, I don't think you would get a gold star on a drop, because to get a gold star, you'd have to go to the Ancient Enchantress. So yeah, no. But what I was gonna say is you might get some really good rolls on your other enchantments, but really to get them to gold star level, you will be having to enchant them. Alright, let's do one more anomaly. I feel like I was a bit rusty. I wasn't getting my kill streaks. Ooh, this is gonna be a short one. A short and dense one with a lot of enemies in a tight little ring. Ooh, one thing I should mention. So one mastery that I have also allows, I think, Splinter, Splinter, and therefore Razor Tips to trigger in a radius around my Treant, which is one of my companions, which is a nice damage boost, especially against like the crowds of enemies, because he can kind of be standing behind you, really increasing the range at which you're doing your damage. Alright, let's continue on. I should be hitting these shrines, because sometimes they will give you items, sometimes they'll give you crystals. Usually they'll give you some sort of a temporary offensive or defensive bonus, which is good to have. Alright, let's carry on. And like, I allowed my kill streak to die, that's why I wasn't too sorry, I wasn't too worried about getting to the next floor in time. That's because by the time I got to the end of this floor, I was so far away from the stage 2 portal that I knew that my kill streak wouldn't last. So I was like, you know what, I'll just take a bit of time and relax before I get to the next level. Ooh, I think I heard Fey enemies. Oh. We need to go back because I see Treants. So we need to equip our other beast. Yeah, we got no ice at all, just because, you know, we didn't find any ice levels, but that's okay. Alright, let's get some materials for you, my dude. Alright, let's continue now. And yeah, sure, let's go this way. Ooh, sand dwellers. Are those the sandworm guys or something else? I don't think they're the sandworms, it's something else. Oh yeah, we've got Fey enemies as well, these fairies. So we'll be getting those materials as well. What I really want to do is I want to run into more of those, these guys, yes. These ones are what I need. Ooh, we got some more enemies down here. But I can see that I'm going into a bit of a corner, so at a certain point our streak is gonna die, or is it? No, we're gonna keep it alive. We hit 100, which is fantastic. This is a good level. I love the devastation we're causing. Oh, but I think I might have messed this up. Oh, kept the streak alive. We're at 140 now. By the way, you can see the streak. It is a little bit to the right of the character portrait in the things on the bottom left of the screen. And there's a bar, a yellow bar that like it'll fill up and then it'll slowly start depleting when I'm not fighting anything. That is my kind of streak counter, and the number on top of it is how big the streak actually is. So right now we are in the 200s. We are like not a great streak by any means. I know there are definitely people who are able to do an entire 3-stage anomaly without losing the streak at any point, and they'll have something crazy at the end, like a streak of like 1,000 or like almost, or like 1,500 plus. Oh, we're gonna lose our streak. Yep, there. Yep, we just We're not anywhere near where we needed to be. Let's take our frustration out on these pixies. And I think we're close. We're getting close to being able to get to the next anomaly level. So, like on top of where the streak bar is, there's another bar, a blue bar, with a percentage on it. That's how close we are to unlocking the next level. And indeed, on the screen, it just said a portal unlocks. So we are able to go and, you know, finish with this area and go to the next level. But since we're here, and since we know this area has enemies that are dropping the materials we need for our beast, might as well just go around killing some dudes. Sounds like a good idea to me. Where there are a couple places that are left for us to go, so we're gonna get as much value as we possibly can from this area. And this, by the way, these spinning sides are an enemy attack. That's not one of my attacks. And when you have low defenses, that can be devastating. Like, I've been killed so many times by those, especially when I was trying to push like anomalies and expedition levels beyond what I was ready for. Usually what killed me wasn't the enemies, because I was like very intently focusing on the enemies. It was some attack that they spawned next to me, and like my eye didn't, like, I just wasn't able to catch it in time. But now that my defenses are a bit stronger, and now that I have this huge shield, it's a bit harder for enemies to kill me, even with their strong attacks. But that doesn't mean that we can start getting complacent. No. Still need to keep our guard up, because there are, and of course these large red circles, those are easy to see. Those, of course, are also enemy attacks. I was gonna say, we can't get complacent because occasionally enemies will be able to get through our shields. And if they get through our shields, they've basically almost already killed us, because we have no health, close to no health. Compared to our shield, we have essentially no health. So, yeah, we do need to keep an eye out on that, and it looks like we've gone everywhere in this part off this anomaly. Hopefully we get some more treants in the next region. Got a few more of these dudes we gotta take care of first. I'll brush them aside, and what do we have here? We've got some more of these bats. I like fighting them because they go down really quickly. They are great for building up a streak. And one issue you might have is that the indicators for enemy attacks might be hard to see against certain backgrounds. So you see this kind of dull purple background, this terrain that we're fighting on. Sometimes when enemies are doing an attack and that red circle appears, like right there behind us right now, sometimes those can be very hard to see. Like, you'll get an intuition for it over time, but definitely I got hit by those attacks all the time. And like, I wouldn't even know what was hitting me. But then I was like, oh right, there was a whole thing there, a whole enemy attack that I just didn't see because it blended right in with the background. Oh, we're gonna lose our streak because we're too far away. Yep. But you can see, like, even with this, like, not very impressive at all, 177, we're getting a quarter of a million crystals, which isn't a bad amount of crystals like to just get for like a bonus. Like just on top of what we're getting for selling, what we're getting for our reward at the end of the anomaly. So it is a good idea to keep your streaks as high as you can take them. And let's hope... Oh no, we're gonna lose our... No! Oh, we kept it alive. It is a bit of a... like the luck of the draw in terms of which path you go, whether you'll be able to kind of chain it back to another group of enemies. Like, there's an achievement in this game for getting a streak of 1,000, and I've done that a couple times. Hopefully I'll be able to do that a few times on camera as well. But I know when I was getting that, a lot of it was the luck of whether... because you can't see the entire map to start out with, and we're going to lose our streak again because this path had no way to connect to that path. And it's a bit frustrating here because the exit is back there as well, and we're going to have to walk all the way back to get to the exit. But yeah, as I was saying, like, to get big streaks, you really need a bit of luck as well. You kind of need to go so that every path you go connects you to the next path, that you need to be where the next enemies are without a lot of backtracking, or you'll have to do, you know, annoying things like leaving enemies alive along the way so you can kind of like hit them to kind of keep a chain going, but that's way more trouble than it's worth. I prefer to just play and, you know, let the chips fall where they may. If I get a really long streak, I'll get, you know, I'll be happy about that. If I don't, then so be it. And we're done with this level. We can go and fight the boss if we want, but since we're already here next to this area that we haven't been, we may as well just say hi to them, see how they're doing. Looks like, oh, I got stuck, and because I got stuck on the edge of the lava lake there, like, I didn't have a huge streak going, but I could have turned that like 30-something streak into like a 50 streak, gotten a few more crystals out of it. You know what? It's okay, I'm over it. And just like that, we've basically full cleared this anomaly section as well. And let's just hit up these shrines before we hit the boss. A couple of buffs before we hit the boss. Sounds like a good idea. How long are our... You know what, I think we can kill the boss. I'll keep... Yeah, I'll let him have his little cutscene. It's not a very... It's not a very elaborate cutscene by any means, but you know, he has a bit of a line that he wants to say, so you know, might as well let him have his moment. And now we're done. We got a few more things to sell. Ooh, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but so let me sell the stuff first. Let's see what we have here. I don't really need these garbage bags. Like, not garbage bags like the stuff you buy at the store, but garbage bags in the sense of the bag item, but just a real garbage version of it, because I already have these legendary bottomless bags. And if I found more bottomless bags, I would keep them for and I'd put them in the shared stash for my other characters. But I ain't got time for this like regular gear bag, and that's the one case where like I ran into the limits of what the loot filters could do for me, because there's no way for me to filter these bags out without then also losing out other items that I would want to pick up and at least sell, because like you don't even get, you only get like 1,800 crystals for those, whereas this is more what I'm looking for, like 64,000, 45,000, 60,000. And we already looked at fleet striders. We don't need those. And okay, what am I? Got a rare relic injector, potion injector, enhanced injector. I think I might have picked up an extra injector at some point, because I feel like I've got one more item than what I'm usually carrying. Nope, no, it's this, no, Scroll of Return is something I am keeping, because sometimes we will need it. So yeah, I think Scroll of Challenge, Scroll of Dimensions, I guess I'm keeping those as well. Huh. Anyway, let's not agonize over it too much. It probably was one of these injectors that I picked up. Anyway, what does our beast have? Also a whole bunch of things, so let's sell as many of those as we can. And he picked up a true legendary item. The cosmic, excuse me, throat is a bit dry. Should have, you know what, let me have a quick sip of water. So the cosmic cape, which we already have, but do we have like a spare one of it? We do, and is this is already gold star, so we can sell this for another 87,000. Good stuff. All right, now I want to see how many materials we're working with. We're actually getting pretty close. Just a couple more, well, not a couple more, but like 25 more treant bark and a couple hundred more fairy dust, and then we can be done with this, and we won't have to carry around those items because they do take up inventory space. I kind of wish they didn't, but that's okay. It's a temporary thing. Once the upgrades are done, we won't need to carry it anymore. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, so this thing, I did some calculations, and I think I'm gonna need about 480 million crystal, the basic purple currency that you see in the top left. 480 million of that to get it all the way to level 100, assuming that the price keeps on scaling the way it does. If that scaling changes, then obviously my math will be all wrong. But for now, I'm gonna assume that it scales the same way that it did from like 0 to 40. So if it sticks with that, I'm gonna need about another 120 million. And we'll just get it over time. What I might do is, my next video, I might, or you know what, we've got a few other things to do before I start grinding and showing you end level stuff. Let's just take our time. Yeah, I think, let me check how long this video has been going for. Ooh, it's gone on for another 40 minutes. I was hoping to keep videos shorter than that, but I guess I did have stuff to talk about, and over time there will be less talking, more action. But we did have some stuff to cover, so you know what, that's okay. But yeah, I think we are gonna call this video here. Next time, what we're gonna do is, we are going to take a look at some of the other game modes that I haven't really shown off so much. Specifically, the boss anomalies, because they're fun. We are well beyond the point where they are challenging, but they're fun, and you do need to do them to get, you know, some important materials if you're building your mythical weapons. So we're going to take a look at those, and just in general, we're going to be making progress towards our main goals, of course. Our goals of upgrading our beasts and of getting enough crystals to get our skills, and maybe me finally working up the wherewithal, just forcing myself to do a bit of spring cleaning and putting the stuff in the stash that it actually needs to be, rather than in the backwards arrangement that I have it in right now. But that is going to be all for this video. Hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed it, and more importantly, I hope you got a sense for why this build that I'm running, this High Rangers build, with these modifications that I've put on it, why that's a good one if you're a beginner. Because it relies on your primary attack, and it doesn't require you to do like complicated things with your other skills. Like you can just stand and shoot, and the damage will get there, and then you can just focus on dodging and avoiding damage. So it's a good build if you're playing a Warden and if you're just getting started out, at least in my opinion. If you're running a different build that you think is even better, feel free to share. I would love to compare it, but yeah. This is the one I'm running for this first little series that we're going to be doing, and I think it's working pretty well. But yes, that is going to be all for this video. Thank you for watching, and hope you'll join me in the next one, where we're going to be doing some more interesting stuff in Chronicon as the Warden. Alright? So until then, take care.